I've always really enjoyed the diversity of talks here at TechTO. And so when I was asked to speak tonight, I thought long and hard about what I wanted to say. I haven't been in this game long. A year and a half ago, I had returned from Ethiopia and I was working at a biotech startup out of Mars. And so I'm pretty new to this. And so I decided to talk about my journey, the first year journey, and how we went from idea to venture-backed, 5 people, full-time and growing startup here in Toronto. So, my story starts with my dog, Bo, now 2 years old, as was mentioned. I'm sure many of you are pet owners here, and when I brought Bo home, I noticed he had some unusual fluke health problems. And so I was constantly going to the vet, a lot of the time out of worry and not medical necessity, and commuting between Toronto and Burlington, and I was frustrated. And I pulled out my app, and I looked for telemedicine providers here, and there were none. Telemedicine, tried and true for humans, not applied for pets. And I realized it was because it wasn't a legally viable concept. So I lobbied the College of Veterinarians of Ontario for 6 months, and we came out with HealthyPets, Canada's first telemedicine application for pet parents. But how did we get there? That's what I'm going to talk about tonight. And my journey might not be totally applicable to all of yours, but hopefully some of it is. So when I had this idea, I decided to go out and understand if other people, other than myself, also had this problem. I conducted a lot of primary market research in the form of surveys and interviews to understand if other pet parents felt these frustrations, and it turns out they did. And I combined that research with data on vets and secondary market research as well. I created a plan. I understood that over the next 3-6 months, what did I want to accomplish, when, and what the desired outcomes were. And this plan was really, really valuable to guide me in my actions, especially at the early days of my journey. I quit my job. I had just finished paying off my student line of credit, and I decided I was going to take out another. And I know that we're all at different life stages, so I'm not saying this is for everybody, but a lot of entrepreneurs tell me that they face a lot of difficulty getting their idea off the ground quick enough because they have a career and they're working on this on the side. So for 10 months in, I was waiting tables nights and weekends and tutoring math to do this during the typical business hours, and it really made a difference. Networking. So just like this event, Toronto hosts so many amazing events, and I can truly say that there have been a few that made the difference between being here tonight and not. And I mean that seriously. So if I'm not selling, I'm trying to network, and that's a tip I have for anybody here. Launching a focused pilot, and focus is key because so many people are going to tell you need to expand geographically, you need to expand your feature set, but you need to focus on what you offer at its core in a certain geography, because otherwise you're going to jeopardize the results that you hope to achieve. Other than networking, there's an amazing community events. So in its first couple months, HealthyPets won about $70K in pitch competitions. We won a $40K grant, and we also participated on season 12 of Dragon's Den, which aired 2 weeks ago. Hone your story. This is so important because ultimately you need to understand what your big vision is. What's the big impact that your company is going to have? Don't think small. Think massive. Think global. And this is something that I still struggle with and that my mentors still really support me with. And ultimately, if you're like me and you start to see your line of credit increasing and your bank account decreasing, and you know you need to transition from bootstrapping to fundraising, you're going to be able to do that more successfully because of the steps you've taken thus far. So for HealthyPets, it was actually through Dragon's Den that Arlene's venture fund invested $500K in us in December. So ultimately, that's been our journey so far in a nutshell. I hope that's been helpful, but please feel free to follow up with me anytime. Thank you.
Questions? Oh.
Just right there.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Just wondering what your process was like lobbying the Vet Society. If you could talk a little bit to that specifically, how that went and how you came out successfully.
Yeah, so when I had the idea, like I said, it wasn't a legal option for vets here in Ontario. So honestly, I just pulled out the staff directory from online and started calling, and the first 3 or 4 people said, don't talk to me ever again. And then I eventually found an internal advocate and worked with her very intensely to help support their policy that came out in April of 2017 to support telemedical practice here in Canada for the first time. And it was just a process of persistence, I think.
Here in the back.
Hello? Hi, back here.
Oh, hi.
So just in terms of your plan, did you set metrics you needed to hit in order to keep going, especially early on? Like sort of benchmarks?
We didn't hit them. We came close. But our benchmarks were, because it's not a straight line, as is already discussed, but our benchmarks were ultimately our North Star metric is number of consults. The MVP of our website was built offshore. I'm not an engineer, and it was a disaster because I didn't hire properly. And so ultimately the website crashed, and so it wasn't a straight line. But one thing I've learned is when you find the right investor, what they'll continuously tell you is no startup is going to grow in a straight line, and ultimately they're betting on the jockey, not the horse. So you're going to pivot and you might not reach all your benchmarks, but it's up to the founder or the team of founders to keep going.
One more question.
Hi, everyone. At the end of the day, right, as an entrepreneur, how do you self-motivate yourself when you go back home, right? Because you have been motivating every single guy who is, working with you or who's around you. How do you self-motivate yourself?
Yeah. I always thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I thought I'd do it at a later stage. And I found a niche that honestly excites me every day, as cliche as that sounds. I love what I do. I probably average 90 hours a week, and I've never been happier, and I have a support system at home who is there for me and is very supportive of me. But at the end of the day, we've been working really, really hard the last 6 weeks at HealthyPets, and for the first time, I find myself, I'm a morning person, literally no alarm, get out of bed at 5. And for the first time ever, it's now 6. And so I do think that there's a need to recognize when you need to step back and take a break. So I'd love to go away for 4 days and reset. But until then, honestly, I think it's about finding that niche that really thrills you. I truly am passionate about what I'm doing, and you could offer me $1 million salary today to go do something else, and I would 100% turn it down.